On the news, Tinubu sacks 5 ministers, appoints 7 new members in major cabinet reshuffle. Nigerian government drops money laundering charge against Binance executive Gambaran. And Senate considers bill to establish National Food Reserve Agency. Many thanks for joining us on News Now on TV 360 Nigeria. I'm Simisola Chikun. In a significant move, President Bola Tinubu has reshuffled his 45-member cabinet, sacking 5, naming 7 new members and swapping 10 others. The sacked ministers are Uju Ken Ohaneye, who served as Minister of Women Affairs, Minister of Tourism Lola Adejohn, Minister of Education Tahir Maman, Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development Abdullahi Mohammed Gwazo, and Minister of Youth Development Jamila Bio Ibrahim. The president has also appointed 7 new ministers to his cabinet. Presidential spokesman Bayo Ononuga said the new ministers would occupy humanitarian and poverty reduction, trade and investment, labor, livestock development, and junior ministers for foreign affairs, education, and housing ministries.
Honorable Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, Minister of State Education as of now, is now the Minister of State Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Dr. Morufu Olatunji Alausa, who is currently Minister of State for Health, is now the Minister for Education. Barrister Bello Mohammed Guronyo, who is Minister of State Water, Resources and Sanitation, is now going to be Minister of State Works, Minister of State Works. Honorable Abubakar Eshokweka Momo, who is now the Minister of Niger Delta Development, is now the Minister of Regional Development. Uba Maigari Amodu, currently Minister of State Development, is now Minister of State Regional Development. Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite, who is currently Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, is now the Minister of State Finance. Senator John Owa Eno, who is Minister of Sport Development, has now been moved to Ministry of Trade and Investment. He will be in charge of industry. Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, who is Minister of State of Police Affairs, is now the Minister of Women Affairs. Ayodele Olawande, Minister of State for Youth Development, is now the Substantive Minister for Youth Development. Dr. Salako Isiaq Adekunle Adeboye, Minister of State for Environment, is now Minister of State for Health. These are the following ministers who have been discharged, and as you know, the President met them this afternoon to thank them for their services for the nation. They are as follows: Barrister Uju Ken Ohaneye, Minister of Women Affairs; Lola Adejohn, Minister of Tourism; Professor Tahir Mama, Minister of Education; Abdullahi Muhammad Gwazo, Minister of State Housing and Urban Development; Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Minister of Youth Development. So only 5 ministers were discharged. The President thanked the outgoing members of the Federal Executive Council for their service to the nation, and he wished all of them well in their future endeavors. He has also charged the newly appointed ministers, as well as the reassigned ones, to see their appointment as a call to serve the nation. The President asked all the appointees to understand that the administration is eager and determined to set Nigeria on the path of irreversible growth and invest the best of their abilities into the actualization of government's priorities.
In the same vein, the President, through the Federal Executive Council, has scrapped the Ministry of Niger Delta and the Ministry of Sports Development. According to the Council, the National Sports Commission will take over the responsibility of the Sports Ministry. The Council has also approved the merger of the Ministry of Tourism with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy. Well, let's discuss this major cabinet reshuffle by President Tinubu. Political affairs analyst Jide Ojo joins me on the news. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Now, 5 ministers have been sacked so far. Are you surprised by any of the dismissals in particular? And what's your take on the newly appointed officials? And do you think that this reshuffle will have any significant difference?
That's the three in one question. I think you are being unfair to me to ask me 3 questions in one. But let me start from the first one you asked, whether I'm surprised. Of course, all ministers know that they serve at the prerogative of the president, and he can discharge them at any point in time. That's why sometimes I don't understand why someone will leave Senate to go and be minister when that person does not have a guarantee of being with the president for the entire period of his tenure. However, this cabinet reshuffle has laid to rest and has also proven the capability of Dr. Betta Edu, who was earlier relieved of appointment as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs early in the year. It shows that she has been given the soft landing of just being relieved of her position without any sanction beyond that. And what also surprised me is that women are the bigger casualty, if I can say that, bigger casualty in this. You have out of 6, because I would say 6 were actually relieved of their position. It's not 5, because Itato Betta Edu was on suspension. She was not removed. She was on suspension and could have been recalled. So if you put Betta Edu along with these 5, that means there are 4 women and 2 men that were affected. Again, the one that surprised me is the Minister of Education, where the president have decided to remove the 2 ministers there, both the substantive and the Minister of State. Peradventure is because of the controversies over the minimum age of 18 and all of that. But the president did not offer any explanation. But I want to believe it's because of all this controversy that the Professor Taha courted by insisting that you cannot enter Nigerian University unless you are 18. And Mrs. Uju Ohaneye, Minister of Women Affairs, have also been in the news for the wrong reasons, particularly with female gender-focused NGOs. She was too emphatic on women empowerment than issue of policy and programs. But by and large, I commend them. They have gone into the history book as having served as Minister of the Federal Republic. The one that also surprised me is the fact that the president has now, let me say this, the president should have done this a bit earlier than now, for the singular reason that now, with the collapse of the removal of Ministry of, or the scrapping of Ministry of Sports, and then merging of Ministry of tourism with that of culture and creative economy, as well as the scrapping of Ministry of Niger Delta. This should have been done like a month or 2 earlier, because as we speak now, the budget for 2025 is already late to be presented to the National Assembly. Now with this restructuring, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Minister of Budget and National Planning will have to withdraw whatever draft they have put together, because you now have to provide funds for the newly created Ministry of Livestock Development, and also the change of nomenclature of Ministry of Niger Delta to Ministry of Regional Affairs, as well as other things. But the one that surprised me most, which I was looking forward to, was the scrapping of Ministry of Police Affairs, which didn't happen. The way the president scrapped the Ministry of Sports, he should have also have the courage to to scrap Ministry of Police Affairs, because it is the same argument that the president put forward, that the National Sport Commission should take over the role of Minister of Sport. The same way, the Police Service Commission should have been allowed to take over the responsibility of Minister of Police Affairs. We don't need Minister of Police Affairs when we already have a constitutional body that is called Ministry and that is called Police Service Commission. So
I'm sorry to cut you short at this point, but very briefly now, let's talk about the scrapped Ministry of Niger Delta and the Ministry of Sports Development, like you earlier said, and also the merger of the Ministry of Tourism with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy. What are your thoughts?
Said that it's a welcome development. Even though I have issues with creating all these Niger Delta, all these development commissions, they are just another layer of bureaucracy that we can do away with and make sure that the state gets the funding to provide the needed development. But it's within the prerogative of Mr. President to have established development commissions. So this new Minister of Regional Development will now serve as oversighting body for all the regional development commissions. But the issue again is that we do not have in our constitution regional government, or we do not have it entrenched in the constitution, all these zones, the 6 geopolitical zones. We are just using it as an administrative convenience. And I think it's high time we just put it in our law to reflect that, okay, there are 6 geopolitical zones, and then name all the states that are in each of the zones. But right now, what the president has done is to validate the existence of these zones or these regions, the geopolitical zone. So now we have Ministry of Regional Development. So that in itself shows that we have to give legal teeth and recognition to the 6 geopolitical zones, which is not the current situation. So the Minister of Sports, I just didn't like the idea that it seems like a demotion for the Minister of Sport, who was redeployed to be a Minister of State in the Ministry of Trade and Investment. They said he will not be in charge of industry. You know, there is a face-off and there is a tension between a Minister of State and the substantive minister. So when you move Eno from being a substantive Minister of Sport, and you now go and make him a Minister of State under a woman, who, because it's Dr. Jumoke that will now be the substantive Minister of Trade and Investment. You now go and make Eno, who has hitherto to be a substantive Minister of Sport, to go and serve as a junior minister under a woman. That will create tension. I know what I'm talking about. We are we are a society where we don't want a woman to boss us if we have our way. And I'm not too sure that Senator John Eno will be happy with the redeployment as a Minister of State. But I congratulate Olawande, the junior minister in Youth Affairs, or Minister of Youth Development, who has now been elevated to substantive Minister of Youth. But I do not understand why the president could not have elevated the Minister of State for Labor and Productivity. Why she could not have been elevated to substantive minister, while whoever is appointed will now be Minister of State. But it's within all of this is within the prerogative of the president. So suffice to say that it is good that they are doing this before the submission of the 2025 budget, so that all the new ministries and the merged ones will now have their budget, and it will not be a situation where they will be looking for supplementary budget to fund the activities of the newly created ministries.
Well, Mr. Jide Ojo, political affairs analyst, many thanks for lending your honest thoughts to us on the news. Moving on, the Nigerian government has dropped all charges against Tanja Gambaran, an executive at Binance Holdings, who has been on trial for money laundering and currency speculations at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The development comes 2 days ahead of the previously scheduled hearing set for October 25, which had been announced in open court last Friday. Counsel to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, R.U. Adaba, cited diplomatic interventions and the extent of the defendant's involvement in the alleged crimes as the key reasons for the decision. She also cited Gambaran's worsening health in custody. The trial judge, Emeka Wite, however, sustained the money laundering charges against the cryptocurrency firm Binance, which now stands as the sole defendant in the case. The firm is accused of money laundering and currency speculation involving as much as $34.4 million to the detriment of the Nigerian forex market and economy. A bill for an act to establish the National Food Reserve Agency has scaled through second reading in the Red Chamber. The bill was sponsored by Senator Salihu Mustafa, representing Kwara State. In his lead debate, Senator Mustafa said the bill, when passed into law, would provide a legal framework on the country's National Food or Grains Reserve Agency to function better than the way it is being handled. Addressing the media soon after the plenary, Senator Mustafa said the bill will concentrate more on the legal framework.
The bill seeks to further develop the agricultural sector by ensuring national food security and income through marketing and storage services, as well as addressing emergency food crisis. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the bill will also establish the National Food Reserve Agency for the purpose of implementing the National Food Reserve Policy, reducing post-harvest losses, and providing food security for the nation.
The need for having food reserve for the country. A country of over 200 million people cannot have self-sufficiency and food security without food reserve. And for that reason, the federal government saw it right and established the agency. We even have the agency in existence.
President, distinguished senators, this agency, when established, is not only going to work by way of price stabilization, because the agency will be charged with the responsibility of buying up surplus with a view to storing it during the period of harvest. And when there is scarcity, the agency will now bring it out and sell it to the members of the public by way of subsidized price.
It's time for a short break, but coming up on News Now, Belarus President Lukashenko to seek 7th term in January 2025 vote. Stay with us for details of this story and others. Welcome back. Let's take you through our major stories. In a significant move, President Bola Tinubu has reshuffled his 45-member cabinet, sacking 5 ministers, naming 7 new members and swapping 10 others. The president has also appointed 7 new ministers to his cabinet. Presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga said the new ministers would occupy the humanitarian and poverty reduction ministries, trade and investment, labor and livestock and development, and also would include junior ministers for foreign affairs, education and housing ministries. In the same vein, the president, through the Federal Executive Council, has scrapped the Ministry of Niger Delta and the Ministry of Sports Development. According to the council, the National Sports Commission will take over the responsibility of the Sports Ministry. The council has also approved the merger of the Ministry of Tourism with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy. We also informed you that the Nigerian government has dropped all charges against Tanja Gambaran, an executive at Binance Holdings who has been on trial for money laundering and currency speculations at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The development comes 2 days ahead of the previously scheduled hearing set for October 25, which had been announced in open court last Friday. The trial judge, Emeka Wite, however, sustained the money laundering charges against the cryptocurrency firm Binance, which now stands as the sole defendant in the case. In case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, you can catch us on Limex World TV and AVO TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store, Huawei App Gallery and Apple Store. On Facebook, we're TV360 Online. Well, let's now join Opeyemi Owojeni, who is on standby with more stories on business. What's the latest, Opeyemi?
Well, Semisola, the House of Representatives has put on hold a bill aimed at increasing the monthly revenue allocation for oil-producing states to a minimum of 50%. The bill seeks to amend Section 162, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which currently allocates 13% oil derivation to oil-producing states. Sponsored by lawmaker representing Rivers State, Awaji Inobeka Biante, and 8 other members, the bill also proposes raising the derivation fund. In a separate development, a similar bill sponsored by Honorable Mark Essed, which advocates a 60% revenue allocation for oil-producing states, passed the second reading in the House.
Speaker, you have sat down there and you have referred several alterations to the Nigerian Constitution to the Constitutional Review. So if Abiante is being singled out today, it goes to show that whatever we are saying and doing here is of no consequence, of no effect.
This is not the case.
Mr. Speaker, please. Mr. Speaker, please, sir. Please, sir. You asked me to expatiate. The portion that I have only requested to be altered is to look at the principles of derivation. We have even passed a part of what I am asking for. In this same House today, on Bill number 9, it talks about derivation principles. Is it about
the subject matters are different?
They are the same. They are the same subject matter.
You should not. Please, I don't want you to be sentimental. Honorable Abete, please sit down.
Mr. Speaker, I'm requesting an alteration to the derivation percentage. That's all.
Sit down, please, please.
I would say they're a bit economical to the House because we need to know under which principles would they want to amend Section 162, subsection 2 of the Constitution. We need to know the principles behind that. They need to break it down. Let us know the rationale because we don't have the bill.
Since members do not have enough information, you are supposed to also present ordinarily a write-up to circulate to members for them to see X, Y, Z of the whole thing. Have you circulated to members? Members have not been given, so they are not adequately equipped to comment on this. Nothing will happen to a bill. We'll just give a little more time for members, now that they are aware of this particular request from you, to go through, and then on Tuesday, we'll resume debate on this particular matter.
We'll go on a short break, and I'll be back with more reports in the stock update. Welcome back. The Nigerian equities market continued its impressive winning streak on the third weekday of trading, showcasing strong performance and boosting investors' confidence. The market increased by 0.05%, with the market capitalization at 59.97 trillion naira. Now, the market increased, and in total, 122 NGX-listed equities were active in today's trading, wrapping up with 31 gainers against 16 losers. Now, we see Oando topping the gainers list, enjoying a robust 10% increase in share price, closing at 89 naira 65 kobo per share. Now, following closely behind was Unilever Nigeria, showcasing solid performance as well on the stock market. Now, at the end of today's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we see a total of 283 billion volumes of shares exchanged in 7,966 deals, reaching a market value of over 8 billion naira. Now, when compared to Tuesday, October 22nd, today's results show a notable 52% decline in volume, a 67% drop in turnover. However, the number of deals saw a positive twist with a 14% increase. It's a day of contrast for investors as the market continues to evolve. Now, switching gears to the global market, gold prices hit record highs on Wednesday, defying the dollar's rise, which kept pressures on the yen and the euro, while global stocks edged lower amid investors' reluctance to place major bets ahead of the U.S. presidential election. That's leaving all our global equities, that's the UK FTSE, the US Dow Jones, and Japan's Nikkei in the bearish territory. Now, on the foreign exchange note, the naira continues a struggle, with the black market exchange rate pegging the dollar at 1,728 naira, the pound at 2,255 naira, and the euro at 1,860 naira on the black market as well. Well, that's it on both business and stock market report. Back to you, Simisola, for the rest of the news.
Thank you very much, Okwayemi. On the foreign scene, Belarus plans to hold a presidential vote in which incumbent Alexander Lukashenko, who won a sixth term in 2020 and has been in power since 1994, says he will seek re-election in 2025. The country's Central Election Commission announced the date in Minsk on Wednesday, saying that Parliament had approved the date of the vote. Lukashenko, a staunch ally of Russia who has been accused of manipulating previous elections and stamping out political opposition, has tightened his grip on dissent since Moscow launched its invasion of neighboring Ukraine in February 2022. And on sports, football enthusiasts across the country are gripped by anxiety and suspense as the Confederation of African Football announces its decision on the botched 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying Group D tie between Nigeria and Libya on Wednesday. The Nigerian Football Federation had lodged a complaint with CAF after the Libyan authorities subjected the Super Eagles to inhumane treatment upon arriving in the country for the second leg against the Mediterranean Knights on Sunday. Speaking during a press conference on Tuesday after the 46th Ordinary General Assembly in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, CAF President Patrice Motsepe said a proper investigation was ongoing, leaving all fingers crossed ahead of Wednesday's decision. And more than 100 soccer players from the women's game have signed an open letter to FIFA urging the sports world governing body to end its sponsorship deal with Saudi oil and gas company Aramco. In April this year, FIFA announced a 4-year global partnership with the majority state-owned oil giant, giving its sponsorship rights to the 2026 Men's World Cup and the 2027 Women's World Cup. The letter, signed as of publication by 108 current and former players from across the world, called the deal a stomach punch for the women's game, citing Saudi Arabia's human rights record. Well, that's it on News Now. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next time.